The holographic display cast a soft blue glow across Dr. Sarah Chen's face as she studied the unusual signal patterns floating before her. The Asteroid Belt Research Station's observation deck offered a spectacular view of Jupiter rising behind the rocky field, but she hadn't looked up from her work in hours. Something about these signals was different from the usual cosmic background noise they monitored. "Dr. Chen, you should really get some rest," Maria Santos, her research assistant, said from the doorway. "You've been at this for 18 hours straight." Sarah waved a hand dismissively, her eyes never leaving the complex waveforms. "There's a pattern here, Maria. Look at how it repeats, but with subtle variations. This isn't random cosmic noise." The station's artificial gravity suddenly fluctuated, causing loose items to drift momentarily before settling back down. Sarah barely noticed. Such minor technical hiccups were common this far out in the solar system. Humanity had only established permanent settlements beyond Mars in the last decade, and the technology was still being refined. Her computer chimed, indicating the completion of another analysis cycle. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she read the results. "Maria, get Director Peterson now." The younger woman must have heard the urgency in her voice because she didn't argue, just turned and sprinted down the corridor. Sarah's fingers flew across the holographic keyboard, running confirmation after confirmation. Each test returned the same result. The signal was a message, an artificial, deliberately constructed message. Director Peterson arrived minutes later, still adjusting his rumpled uniform. "This better be important, Dr. Chen. It's 300 station time." "Sir, look at this." Sarah projected the decoded pattern sequence onto the main screen. "These aren't random emissions. They're language patterns, complex ones, but definitely linguistic in nature, and they're being broadcast directly toward Earth." Peterson's sleepy expression vanished as he studied the data. "You're certain?" "I've run every verification protocol we have. This is a deliberate transmission from an artificial source, and it's coming from just beyond Saturn's orbit." Sarah highlighted specific sections of the pattern. "What's more, I'm beginning to understand parts of it. The mathematical structure is fascinating. They're using universal constants as a base cipher." The station's general alert sounded, its low tone echoing through the metal corridors. Peterson's communicator buzzed simultaneously. He answered it, his face growing progressively paler as he listened. "Similar signals are being detected by every major observatory in the solar system," he announced after ending the call. "And there's more. Our long-range telescopes are picking up objects, lots of them, decelerating from faster-than-light travel near Saturn." Sarah's hands trembled as she entered new commands into her system. The holographic display shifted, showing a real-time feed from the station's most powerful telescope. Dozens of massive shapes were visible, their surfaces reflecting Saturn's distant light. They were clearly artificial, their geometric patterns too perfect to be natural. "I've decoded more of the message," Sarah said quietly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. It's an ultimatum. They're calling themselves the Stellar Empire of Centauri. They're claiming our solar system as their territory because of its strategic position in something they call the hyperspace network." Peterson gripped the back of a chair, his knuckles white. "What exactly are they demanding?" "Complete surrender within 30 days. They're describing us as a developing civilization that needs to be brought under proper management." Sarah's jaw clenched. "They don't consider us advanced enough to resist." The station's communications array suddenly lit up as signals poured in from Earth. The various space agencies, governments, and military commands were all scrambling to respond to this unprecedented situation. Humanity had just made first contact with an alien civilization, and it had come in the form of a conquest attempt. "They think we're primitive because we've barely expanded beyond Mars," Sarah said, a spark of defiance in her voice. "That could be their first mistake. We may not have their technology, but they clearly don't understand human nature." Peterson nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to show them exactly what humanity is capable of when challenged. Dr. Chen, I need you to focus entirely on decoding more of their language. We have 30 days to prepare for the fight of our species' existence." Sarah turned back to her workstation, her mind already racing with possibilities. The aliens had made a critical error in judgment. They had given humanity time to prepare. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was achieving the impossible when backed into a corner. The lunar research facility hummed with activity as Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the holographic model of Centauri communication patterns floating before her. After 2 weeks of non-stop analysis, something about their transmissions bothered her, but she couldn't quite place what it was. "You look like you're about to burn a hole through that display," a young voice said from behind her. James Martinez, a 16-year-old programming prodigy who had been evacuated from Earth along with other essential civilian specialists, stood in the doorway of her lab. Sarah smiled despite her exhaustion, just trying to understand why their responses seemed so predictable. James finished, stepping into the room. He'd been helping the cybersecurity team analyze alien transmission protocols, and his fresh perspective had already led to several breakthroughs. Exactly. Sarah manipulated the hologram, expanding a particular sequence. "Look at this. Every time we send a message asking about their intentions, they respond with virtually identical patterns. Even the variations follow strict mathematical rules." James moved closer to the display, his dark eyes scanning the data streams. "It's like they're running everything through some kind of filter." Or, his voice trailed off as he pulled up his own tablet and connected it to the system. Sarah watched as he overlaid a new analysis pattern on her data. "What are you thinking?" "My mom used to say I had a weird way of looking at things," James said, fingers flying across the screen. "Everyone else on the cyber team is trying to break down their communications like a traditional computer system. But what if it's not just advanced technology? What if it's something fundamentally different?" The hologram shifted, now showing the alien communication patterns arranged in a three-dimensional spiral. James added a new layer of data, the quantum signatures they detected from the Centauri ships. "There," he said, pointing to where the patterns intersected. "Their entire system is quantum-based, but not like our experimental quantum computers. Their technology is built on quantum principles at every level. It's why their responses seem so mathematical. They're not just using quantum computing, they're thinking in quantum algorithms." Sarah's exhaustion vanished as she processed the implications. And quantum systems, no matter how advanced, still follow strict mathematical rules. They can't handle true randomness or human intuition, James finished. "We've been thinking they're just more advanced than us, but they're different. Their technology makes them incredibly powerful, but also predictable." Sarah breathed. She quickly pulled up data from historical military encounters. "Look at this. Every time their ships maneuver, they follow optimal patterns calculated to quantum precision. When we tried standard military responses, they countered perfectly. But when our ships had to improvise because of equipment failures, the aliens' responses were slower," James said, excitement building in his voice. "They had to recalculate everything because we weren't following their predicted patterns." Sarah was already reaching for her communicator. "We need to get this to command immediately. Humanity's greatest weakness, our imperfect, intuitive, sometimes illogical way of thinking, might actually be our greatest strength against them." The facility's alert system suddenly blared to life. Sarah's communicator buzzed with an incoming priority message. The Centauri fleet had begun moving earlier than expected. They were accelerating toward Earth. "They're not waiting the full 30 days, Sarah said, quickly saving their findings. "They must have detected our preparations." James looked at the tactical display showing the approaching fleet, but instead of fear, his expression showed intense concentration. "Dr. Chen, before we go, there's something else. I've been working on a personal project, combining music theory with programming. It creates patterns that no computer can predict because they follow emotional rules instead of mathematical ones." Sarah stared at him for a moment, then smiled. "James, I think you might have just given us the key to everything. Grab your tablet. We're heading to the command center. It's time to show the Centauri what human creativity can really do. Above them, through the lunar facility's dome, Earth shone like a blue jewel against the black of space. Humanity's home, still peaceful, still beautiful, and now, thanks to an unexpected discovery, with a fighting chance to stay that way. The Global Space Defense Initiative's underground command center buzzed with controlled chaos as Dr. Sarah Chen and James Martinez presented their findings. Holographic displays showed the approaching Centauri fleet, now just past Mars' orbit. Earth's most brilliant minds had gathered here, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, to coordinate humanity's defense. You're telling us that human unpredictability is our advantage? General Diana Roberts asked, her weathered face illuminated by the tactical displays. That seems like a thin hope to rest Earth's survival on. It's more than that, Sarah explained, pulling up the quantum analysis data. The Centauri's entire civilization is built on predictable patterns. Their quantum AI systems are incredibly powerful, but they can't process true randomness or emotional responses. It's not just about military tactics, it's about fundamentally different ways of thinking. James stepped forward, surprisingly confident for a teenager, addressing a room full of military leaders and scientists. I can demonstrate. He connected his tablet to the main display. This is a standard Centauri communication pattern. A series of complex waves appeared in the air. And this, he pressed another button, is what happens when we introduce human music theory into their quantum matrix. The pattern twisted, transformed, and bloomed into something new. Several scientists gasped as they recognized the implications. Their systems try to predict and counter every pattern they encounter, James continued. But human music follows emotional rules, not just mathematical ones. When we introduce these patterns into their quantum network, it creates cascading uncertainties. Their AI can't calculate emotional responses. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of the Quantum Computing Division, leaned forward. We could use this to disrupt their entire command and control system. Exactly, Sarah said. But we need to think bigger. Every aspect of our defense needs to embrace human unpredictability. The next hours flew by as the command center transformed into a hub of innovative thinking. In orbit, space station crews began modifying their habitats into what they called dance platforms, mobile bases that could move in patterns based on classical ballet rather than military doctrine. Mining ships, their crews already experts at navigating asteroid fields, started practicing maneuvers that no computer would ever devise. On the lunar surface, engineers worked with artists to develop what they called chaos drones, small, autonomous units programmed to move according to jazz improvisation rules. Each one carried a quantum disruptor tuned to James's music-based algorithms. The Centauri gave us time to prepare because they thought we'd respond conventionally, General Roberts said, watching the activity on various screens. They expected us to either surrender or attempt a standard military defense. Sarah nodded, reviewing the latest simulation results. Instead, we're turning our entire defense strategy into something their quantum systems can't predict, a symphony of controlled chaos. James looked up from where he was working with a group of programmers. Dr. Chen, we've finished integrating the music algorithms with the defense network. Want to see something cool? He pulled up a new simulation. On the screen, a virtual Centauri ship encountered a defense pattern based on Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. The alien vessel's quantum systems tried to calculate a response, but the unpredictable variables multiplied exponentially. Within seconds, its targeting systems were completely confused. It's working, Sarah breathed. Their perfect calculations become their weakness when faced with human creativity. 10 hours until they enter effective range, General Roberts announced. Dr. Chen, Mr. Martinez, your theory is about to be tested in real combat. I hope humanity's creativity is everything you believe it to be. Sarah looked around the command center. Artists worked alongside military strategists. Musicians collaborated with quantum physicists. Teenage programmers shared ideas with veteran space pilots. This, she realized, was humanity's true strength, not just our unpredictability, but our ability to combine different ways of thinking into something entirely new. They thought we were primitive because we don't rely purely on quantum computing, she said. They're about to learn that human intuition and creativity can't be calculated. Sometimes the most powerful innovations come from thinking outside their perfect mathematical box. Above, through layers of mountain and security, Earth's combined space defense forces made their final preparations. They weren't just fighting with technology, but with the full spectrum of human ingenuity. The greatest performance in human history was about to begin. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched from the bridge of her converted mining vessel as the massive Centauri warships emerged from the darkness beyond Luna's orbit. Her ship, the Starcatcher, had once been used to harvest ice from Saturn's rings. Now it was part of humanity's first line of defense, along with hundreds of other retrofitted civilian craft. All ships maintain radio silence. Came the encrypted message from Earth Command. Initiate Symphony Protocol on my mark. Maya's crew worked with practiced precision, their movements refined through countless drills. On her tactical display, she could see the rest of Earth's defensive fleet moving into position. Space stations pirouetted with impossible grace, their movements choreographed to Tchaikovsky. Mining vessels wove between asteroids in patterns inspired by traditional Indian dance. Centauri vessels launching targeting probes, her sensor officer reported. Their quantum scanners are active. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Let's show them our dance moves. All ships in battle group rhythm, prepare for movement pattern Beta 7. The Centauri fleet approached with mathematical precision, their massive ships arranged in perfect geometric formations. Their first volley of energy weapons lit up space like artificial stars, following targeting solutions calculated by quantum computers to 7 decimal places. But Earth's ships weren't where those calculations said they should be. Now Maya ordered, and the Starcatcher spun in a corkscrew maneuver that no mining ship was ever designed to perform. Around her, the other vessels of battle group rhythm moved in complementary patterns, their trajectories based on jazz improvisation rather than military doctrine. The Centauri weapons found empty space. In the Lunar Command Center, Dr. Sarah Chen and James Martinez watched the battle unfold through a holographic display. Their targeting systems are trying to establish lock, James reported, monitoring the quantum interference patterns. But they can't predict where our ships will be because they're not following mathematical logic. Sarah nodded, her fingers flying across her console. Time to add some chaos to their calculations, initiating disruption sequence. Throughout Earth's fleet, small drones launched from their carrier vessels. Each one broadcast James' music-based algorithms directly into the Centauri quantum network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The perfect formation of the alien fleet began to waver. Their quantum AI systems, confronted with patterns they couldn't resolve, struggled to maintain coordination. Some ships fired at sensor ghosts created by the quantum disruption. Others found their navigation systems, contradicting each other as human music theory, played havoc with their calculations. They're splitting their formation, Maya reported from the Starcatcher, moving to Phase 2. Earth's defenders pressed their advantage. Mining lasers, originally designed to cut through asteroid ice, sliced into confused Centauri vessels. Space stations that had been dancing to avoid fire now spun to present their weaponized solar arrays, focusing concentrated sunlight onto alien shield generators. In the command center, General Roberts watched with growing satisfaction. They expected us to fight like machines, she said. Instead, we're fighting like humans, with creativity, intuition, and just a touch of artistic flair. The battle reached its crescendo as the Centauri fleet attempted to regroup. Their massive flagship, easily the size of Manhattan, began broadcasting override commands to restore order to their formation. But these commands, too, had to pass through their quantum network. Time for the final movement, James said, initiating his master program. The quantum disruption shifted, now broadcasting patterns based on free-form jazz. The Centauri network, already struggling with classical music algorithms, was completely overwhelmed by the improvisational chaos. Maya watched from the Starcatcher's bridge as the alien fleet's coordination completely collapsed. Earth Command, the Symphony Protocol is working. Their formations are breaking apart. The first wave of the Centauri fleet began to retreat, their perfect military precision shattered by humanity's artistic warfare. But Sarah and James exchanged knowing looks. This was only the beginning. The aliens would adapt, would try to find ways around human unpredictability. They'll be back, General Roberts said, already reviewing battle data. But now they know that humanity isn't as primitive as they thought. Sometimes the best defense isn't perfect technology. It's the beautiful unpredictability of the human spirit. The captured Centauri probe floated in the zero-gravity laboratory aboard the Lunar Research Station, its crystalline quantum processors exposed to Sarah's careful analysis. 3 days had passed since humanity's successful defense, and now it was time to push their advantage. Their technology is beautiful, Sarah murmured, studying the intricate patterns that served as the alien equivalent of circuit boards. It's like they built their entire civilization on pure mathematics. James worked at a nearby console, his fingers dancing across holographic keys. That's what makes them vulnerable. They've optimized everything so perfectly that they've lost the ability to handle imperfection. Look at this. He highlighted a section of the quantum matrix. Their communication protocols are like a perfect crystal lattice. And what happens to a perfect crystal when you introduce a single flaw? Sarah smiled, understanding where he was going. It creates fracture points throughout the entire structure. The laboratory door slid open as Captain Maya Rodriguez entered, still wearing her flight suit from her latest patrol. Please tell me you found something we can use. Our scouts report the Centauri are regrouping beyond Mars orbit. Sarah gestured to the probe. We've done better than that. We've found a way to turn their own perfection against them. James, show her the simulation. The young programmer pulled up a holographic display showing the Centauri quantum network. Their entire fleet communicates through quantum entanglement. It's incredibly efficient and normally impossible to hack. But he introduced a new element into the simulation. When we add human music patterns, it doesn't just confuse their systems, it resonates through their entire network. Maya watched as the simulated quantum network rippled with interference patterns, like throwing a stone into a pond. More like playing a wrong note in a perfect symphony, Sarah explained. Their systems are so precisely tuned that any disruption echoes throughout their entire fleet, and we're about to give them a full concert. In orbit around Earth, the defense fleet was already being modified based on lessons learned from the first battle. Mining ships had their quantum sensors recalibrated to broadcast James's music-based algorithms. Space stations were being equipped with what engineers called harmony generators, devices that could inject random emotional patterns into the Centauri network. We're not just going to defend this time, Maya said, reviewing the tactical plans. We're going to push into their network and show them what human creativity can really do. Sarah nodded, making final adjustments to her calculations. The Centauri built their empire on the assumption that perfect mathematical order was the height of civilization. They never considered that imperfection could be a strength. James looked up from his programming. Dr. Chen, the final algorithm is ready. I based it on jazz improvisation, not just the music, but the way jazz musicians interact and build on each other's creativity. Perfect, Sarah said, then laughed at the irony of using that word. Or should I say perfectly imperfect? The Lunar Facilities Alert System chimed softly. On the main display, long-range sensors showed movement in the Centauri fleet. They were beginning their approach for a second attack. They think they've analyzed our tactics from the first battle, Maya said, studying the tactical display. They're adjusting their formation to counter what they think we'll do. Sarah's smile grew wider. But they're still thinking like quantum computers, trying to calculate every possibility. They don't understand that human creativity doesn't follow mathematical rules. All ships prepare for eco-strategy implementation. General Roberts' voice came through the command channel. Captain Rodriguez, report to the Starcatcher. Dr. Chen, Mr. Martinez, initiate the Harmony broadcast on my mark. As Maya headed for her ship, she paused at the laboratory door. The Centauri think they're coming to correct their earlier mistake. Instead, they're about to learn that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to improvise, to create, to find beauty in imperfection. Sarah and James turned to their stations, ready to launch humanity's counter-offensive. Above them, Earth's combined fleet prepared to show the Centauri that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't perfect order. It's the beautiful chaos of human creativity. First observer Kex Lin stood before the Centauri High Command's quantum projection, struggling to explain humanity's inexplicable success. The crystalline chamber, designed to maintain perfect geometric harmony, seemed to mock the chaos their fleet had encountered. The humans do not follow any recognizable combat protocols. Kex Lin reported, his metallic skin reflecting the chamber's ambient light. Their tactics appear to be based on something they call artistic expression rather than mathematical optimization. Supreme Commander Valsor's holographic form flickered with barely contained frustration. Impossible. No spacefaring civilization can achieve coordination without quantum precision. Their success must be an anomaly. With respect, Commander, Kex Lin gestured, bringing up battle recordings, observe their movement patterns. This group follows what they call ballet choreography. These ships move according to jazz improvisation. Even their electronic warfare is based on musical principles that our quantum systems cannot predict. In the back of the chamber, young Sub-Commander Zora Ven watched with growing fascination. She had been part of the first wave that encountered Earth's defense forces, and something about their creative approach had sparked her curiosity. First observer, she spoke up, breaking protocol. Perhaps we should consider that our fundamental assumptions about technological advancement are incomplete. The chamber fell silent. Such questioning of established principles was rarely heard in Centauri society. Explain, Valsor commanded, his tone neutral but interested. Zora Ven stepped forward, activating her own data stream. We have always believed that progress means moving toward perfect mathematical order. But the humans have shown us something different, a way of thinking that embraces unpredictability as a strength. She displayed footage from the recent battles. Look at how their ships move. Each maneuver influences the next, like a conversation rather than a calculation. Their tactics evolve in real time, adapting in ways our quantum predictive systems cannot anticipate. And this is precisely why they must be brought under proper management, another commander argued. Such chaos threatens the very foundation of civilized space. Does it? Zora Ven challenged. Our latest analysis shows that human space vessels have a higher survival rate in asteroid fields than our ships, despite our superior technology. Their mining operations are more efficient because they combine computational analysis with what they call intuition. Kex Lin found himself nodding. During my observations, I noticed something remarkable. When their ships suffered damage, human crews can improvise repairs using available materials. Our crews, trained to follow exact specifications, often cannot adapt when replacement parts are unavailable. The chamber erupted in discussion, quantum data streams flickering as various commanders debated this heretical perspective. Valsor raised his hand for silence. You suggest we could learn from these humans? He asked Zora Ven. I suggest we already are, she replied. Several of our younger crew members have begun experimenting with human-inspired problem-solving methods. The results have been surprising. She displayed new data showing improved performance metrics from ships where commanders had allowed more flexible thinking. By combining our quantum precision with elements of human creativity, these crews have achieved results that exceed our standard protocols. Valsor was quiet for a long moment, his holographic form shimming with complex calculations. First observer, you have witnessed these humans directly. Do you believe they could be partners rather than subjects? They are different from us, Kexlin said carefully, but perhaps that is their value. They see patterns we miss, find solutions we would never calculate. Their imperfection, as strange as it seems, has its own kind of perfection. Throughout the Centauri fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Young officers shared stories of human ingenuity. Engineers studied footage of Earth ships dancing through space. Some even began experimenting with human music, fascinated by its mathematical irregularities. The rigid hierarchy of the Centauri Empire was experiencing something entirely new. Change born of imperfection, evolution sparked by chaos, and the first tentative steps toward a different kind of order. The Earth Defense Command Center fell silent as the massive form of the Centauri Imperial flagship emerged from faster-than-light travel. Nearly the size of a small moon, its crystalline structure caught the sun's light and scattered it in dazzling patterns across space. That's their Supreme Leader's personal vessel, Sarah said, studying the readings. They've committed their entire command structure to this battle. James worked furiously at his console, making final adjustments to their quantum disruption program. The Imperial flagship's quantum core is like nothing we've seen before. Its processing power must be incredible. General Roberts stood at the central tactical display, watching as the rest of the Centauri fleet took formation around their flagship. Are we ready for Operation Final Symphony? Almost, James replied. His fingers danced across the holographic keyboard as he fine-tuned the algorithm. I've been working on something special. Not just music this time, but the mathematics of human emotion itself. In orbit, Captain Maya Rodriguez and the Starcatcher led the first wave of Earth's defense fleet into position. Space stations gracefully aligned themselves according to patterns inspired by ancient sacred geometry. Mining ships and converted civilian vessels formed flowing formations that seemed to defy traditional space combat logic. All ships prepared to initiate harmony protocols, Maya broadcast. Remember your creative training. Don't think like machines, think like artists. The Centauri fleet advanced with mathematical precision, their weapons charging. But something was different this time. Some of their ships moved with subtle variations in their patterns, showing influences of human tactical creativity. They're learning, Sarah observed. Some of their commanders are already adapting to our methods. Good, James said with a smile, because that makes them more vulnerable to what comes next. Dr. Chen, initiating Final Symphony. Now. Throughout Earth's fleet, harmony generators activated, but instead of broadcasting pure music, they transmitted something far more complex, mathematical representations of human emotions. Joy, fear, love, hope, all translated into quantum patterns that rippled through space. The effect on the Centauri fleet was immediate and unprecedented. Ships commanded by younger, more adaptable officers began responding to the emotional frequencies, their movements becoming more fluid and unpredictable. The rigid formation started to flow like water rather than crystallize like ice. Their quantum network is experiencing cascading variations, Sarah reported, watching the readings with amazement. The emotional patterns are creating feedback loops in their command structure. On the Imperial flagship's bridge, Supreme Commander Valsor watched in astonishment as his perfect battle plan transformed into something entirely new. The quantum streams of data flowing through the ship's systems began to pulse with unfamiliar rhythms. What is happening? He demanded. Sub-Commander Zaravan stepped forward. They're not just sending music anymore, Supreme Commander. They're showing us how they see the universe, not as perfect patterns, but as flowing emotions given mathematical form. The battle unfolded unlike anything either side had expected. Earth ships moved in harmony with the more creative Centauri vessels, their combined movements creating stunning patterns across space. The Imperial flagship's quantum core, exposed to pure human emotion for the first time, began processing data in entirely new ways. Their main computer is adapting, James announced excitedly. It's not fighting the emotional patterns anymore, it's learning from them. Sarah watched as the tactical display showed the impossible becoming reality. They're discovering that perfection isn't about unchanging patterns. It's about the perfect balance between order and creativity. The massive Imperial flagship slowly ceased its advance. Around it, human and Centauri ships continued their dance through space, no longer enemies, but partners in an impromptu celebration of two different ways of thinking. We're receiving a transmission from the Imperial flagship, General Roberts announced. They're requesting a dialogue. Not surrender terms, not demands. They want to understand how we see the universe. Sarah looked at James, both sharing a moment of profound realization. They had achieved victory not through superior firepower or technology, but by showing the Centauri a new way of thinking, one that combined the best of both their cultures. 6 months after the final confrontation, the Lunar Research Facility had transformed into something extraordinary. Where once there were only military displays and defensive systems, now crystalline quantum processors worked alongside human computers, creating something entirely new. Sarah stood at the observation window, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon. Behind her, James worked with a young Centauri engineer, their fingers moving in sync across a hybrid control panel that responded to both mathematical precision and creative intuition. The quantum harmonic resonance is almost perfect, the Centauri, whose name was Televen, said with evident excitement. I never imagined our systems could process emotional variables with such efficiency. James nodded, making a slight adjustment to their shared program. That's because we stopped trying to make emotions perfectly logical. Instead, we're letting the quantum processors learn from the natural flow of human creativity. The door slid open as Captain Maya Rodriguez entered, now wearing the new insignia of the Joint Earth-Centauri Space Initiative. You three might want to see this. The first hybrid ship is ready for its test flight. They made their way to the facility's main observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see the sleek form of the Harmony Rising, the first vessel to fully integrate human and Centauri technology. Its crystalline hull caught the starlight like a diamond, but its movements held the fluid grace of a dancer. Beautiful, isn't it? Supreme Commander Valsur's holographic form materialized beside them, transmitted from the Centauri homeworld. A perfect blend of order and creativity. Sarah smiled at the ironic use of the word perfect. 6 months ago, we would have considered such a combination impossible. Now look at us. We're teaching quantum computers to appreciate jazz. The Harmony Rising began its test maneuvers, moving through space with unprecedented grace and efficiency. Its hybrid crew, human and Centauri working side by side, demonstrated how two very different approaches to navigation could combine into something greater than either alone. The hyperspace junction that we once sought to control, Valsur observed, has become something far more valuable, a crossroads of cultures and ideas. James watched as his music-based algorithms, now evolved far beyond their original form, helped guide the ship's quantum core. We've learned as much from you as you have from us. Your mathematical precision has helped us understand the underlying patterns in our creativity. And your creativity has shown us that true perfection isn't static, Televen added. It's alive, always growing, always finding new forms. Throughout the solar system, similar scenes of cooperation were unfolding. Centauri quantum technology was revolutionizing Earth's communication networks, while human artistic principles were transforming Centauri ship design. Mining operations in the asteroid belt had become stunning ballads of precision and intuition. We've received the latest reports from the Cultural Exchange Program, Maya said, checking her tablet. Over 1,000 young Centauri have enrolled in Earth's art and music schools, while human students are flocking to quantum engineering programs on Centaur Prime. Sarah thought back to that first moment when they discovered the pattern in the alien signal. We thought we were preparing for war, but we were actually preparing for something much more challenging and rewarding. We were learning how to bridge the gap between two ways of seeing the universe. The Harmony Rising completed its test flight with a flourish that would have been impossible for either species' ships alone. As it docked with the lunar facility, its hybrid crew emerged smiling, both humans and Centaur, knowing they had been part of something historic. The next test flight is scheduled for tomorrow, James said, already planning improvements to the quantum emotional interface. Televen, and I think we can incorporate classical ballet movements into the navigation systems. Tomorrow, Sarah mused, watching Earth's light play across the ship's crystalline surface. That word means something different now, doesn't it? It's not just another day to calculate or predict. It's an opportunity to create something new. The lunar facility hummed with the combined sound of human and Centauri technology, not a perfect harmony, but something more interesting. A constant dance between order and chaos, precision and creativity, mathematics and emotion. It was the sound of two civilizations learning that their differences weren't obstacles to overcome, but rather notes in a greater symphony yet to be written.